Okay, as it is now the top of the hour, thank you for joining us for today's call with LNI Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. I'm Teresa Elliott, Deputy Communications Director for LNI. Please submit your questions by clicking the chat icon, which is the blue thought bubble at the bottom of your screen. Please include your name and media outlet followed by your question. In the interest of time, you'll be limited to one question, but time permitting, we'll open up the call for a second round. You may submit any follow-up questions to us at dipress@pa.gov, and we will address them after the call. For your awareness, this call is being recorded. If you do not consent to being recorded, please hang up now. Following the call, a link to the recording will be provided to the media outlets that participated. We'll get started with comments from Secretary Jerry Oluxiac. Secretary?
Thank you, Teresa, Susan, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us for this regularly scheduled media call. Let me start with the numbers as I do. Since March 15th, we have paid out more than $25 billion in unemployment compensation benefits. That's $4.68 billion from our regular UC program, $15.6 billion from the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, which is the extra $600 that ended the week of July 25th, $4.5 billion from the pandemic unemployment assistance program, $234 million from the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation program, and $33.8 million from Pennsylvania's extended benefits program. We also can tell you that 97% of eligible claimants who filed for regular unemployment compensation between March 15th and July 18th were either paid or were not eligible for benefits. And let me stress that that is in that window. Sometimes we see that figure reported as for everyone, and that is only people who have filed between March 15th and July 18th. 97% of those claimants have been resolved, either paid or determined ineligible. The remaining 3% represent 49,000, slightly more than 49,000 cases that are pending resolution. The automated system couldn't approve those claims for various reasons that we've discussed before, and they are now under individual review by our staff. Now, as we've mentioned, this statistic will fluctuate slightly from week to week as we extend the date parameters. So because we've extended it out to July 18th, there's some fluctuation. UC employees have worked about 268,000 total overtime hours since March 15th, and that includes the service centers and all other areas of unemployment compensation. Our staffing levels have increased about 120% since mid-March. On March 15th, there were 775 employees supporting UC, and we currently have a total of 1,703. For the month of July, 452 support staff and new employees joined unemployment compensation, and we have 100 new staff members who have been trained and are starting with UC today. Since March 15th, we've helped about 847,000 through email, 389,000 by phone, 133,000 by live chat, and just over 300,000 with our virtual assistant. Thank you. And as we remind you every week that we are very proud of those numbers. Our staff, I think, is doing an outstanding job, but we are not satisfied. And we won't be until everyone gets their claim resolved and gets the benefits to which they are entitled. We've gotten some questions in the past about the trust fund, so let me put that out front. Our balance as of Friday, August 21st, was $534,524,178, and that's the official update from the U.S. Treasury. $543,178,178. Between March 15th and August 24th, as I mentioned, we paid more than $25 billion in total unemployment benefits. Majority of that was federal dollars, but Pennsylvania has paid out close to $5 billion in regular state unemployment compensation from our trust fund. At this point, as we've said before, we will be securing federal loans to bolster the fund. We've completed all the required paperwork with the U.S. Department of Labor a few weeks ago to ensure that we're ready to borrow through a zero interest loan, like a revolving line of credit, when needed. And we still anticipate needing to secure the first loan in early September. Also, an update on President Trump's Lost Wage Act, which is at this point, what's in place to replace the federal pandemic unemployment compensation system. On Friday afternoon, L&I submitted an application for the temporary federal lost wages assistance grant funds to provide an additional $300 per week in supplemental payments to some Pennsylvanians receiving unemployment benefits. As we have said all along, Governor Wolf and I prefer and continue calling for Congressional Republicans to make this process simpler and just extend the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, which is the additional $600 per week that ended at the end of July. But with no congressional solution anywhere in sight, we applied for our share of this program on Friday. The President's plan is not really a unemployment insurance program, and the $44 billion available is funded through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and that is intended for storm disaster relief. Because of this, payments to eligible workers will be delayed while all the states, including Pennsylvania, will apply and create a new computer system. If approved, L&I will use this grant funding to provide an additional $300 per week in assistance payments to people receiving unemployment compensation benefits due to COVID-19 related impacts. In order to qualify for the extra $300, eligible individuals must receive at least $100 per week in regular UC, the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, PUA benefits, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, extended benefits, or other forms of benefits related to short-time compensation, shared work, and our trade readjustment allowance. Eligible individuals must also self-certify that they are unemployed or partially unemployed due to disruptions caused by COVID-19. Those payments will be made to eligible claimants retroactively from August 1st, 2020. The payment could end in a matter of weeks if FEMA funding is exhausted or the federal government enacts a new law or extends FPUC to replace the lost wages assistance payment. It will end no later than December 27, 2020. Unfortunately, we can't give you any estimates for how long it will take us to implement the system or how long it will take to begin making payments, as all of that hinges on approval of our application and the final guidance we get from the federal government. But we will be sure to keep you updated as we move forward. Clearly, we want to get the benefits that people are entitled to in their hands, and we would love to see the $600 extended, but we don't know where that's going to lead. So we have applied for the lost wages assistance. Quick update on the PUA fraud that we've been dealing with. We continue to partner with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, the Pennsylvania Treasury, U.S. Bank, and others in this ongoing criminal investigation. This has impacted state systems across the country, and we urge everyone to remain vigilant when it comes to recognizing the warning signs that your identity may have been compromised. If you go to uc.pa.gov/fraud, you can get a list of those warning signs, details on how to report fraud, and instructions for individuals to return any fraudulent benefits they receive. And the last thing I'll mention before we take questions, we are continuing to hold our virtual town halls for the public, doing that every Thursday. And we look forward to doing number 13 this Thursday, August 27th, number 14. We've held 13 so far. People can participate in the town hall by going to access.live/PA-labor, access.live/PA-labor, or calling 833-380-0719. And we urge members of the public to take advantage of that. With that being said, we'll open it up for questions for Susan and I. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that information, Secretary Oluxiac. We have now entered the Q&A portion of today's call. If you have any questions, please submit them by using the blue thought bubble at the bottom of your screen, the chat feature. and we ask that you include your name as well as your media outlet with your question. First, we have Ashley Bishop from WPXI, and she states that we've been contacted about numerous people getting debit cards and checks for unemployment benefits. The problem is that homeowners or households people's names aren't on the debit cards or checks, but the names listed are people who don't have and never lived at the address. Is this a new attempt on the scam that you told us about Memorial Day weekend, where people were using names and info compromised and other hacks? Is your office aware of this? And can you provide an update on the investigation? And then last question, do you know how these people are getting the addresses? That's a lot of questions, Secretary. If you need me to repeat any of them, please let me know.
Well, I think I can answer the last part of the question, and then I'll ask Susan to add on to it. But it does sound like it's connected to the fraud, clearly. We won't address any specifics about what we know or don't know or how we know or don't know it. I can tell you that we have seen a significant decrease in the number of PUA applications in the past few weeks, and we take that as an indication that the people who are trying to tap into the system fraudulently are having less and less success. These are, unfortunately, very bright people who are trying to break into or trying to take advantage of the system, and they will find other ways. So that's why I mentioned in the beginning that we remain vigilant and continue working very closely with the various state and federal agencies that are a part of this. Susan, anything you want to add?
That hit the nail on the head. I would just encourage anyone who is experiencing that to let us know right away. And there is the website that we have for, provides the addresses and the contact information for letting us know that fraud is happening. There's also a report fraud form on our website that's been on our website for years and years. So if anyone sees fraud happening, they can report it. That's also another potential way for an individual to submit if they see something wrong with some unemployment going all to a certain house or anything fraudulent happening. They can report that to us through our website, www.uc.pa.gov at any time, and we will investigate.
And that email again, website where you can get the information about the fraud is uc.pa.gov/fraud for the information that we have.
Next, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Lauren Rosenblatt asks, when do you expect to hear if the application for grant funding from FEMA for the additional $300 per week has been approved? Is there a backup option if it isn't approved?
We have every reason to believe that it will be approved. In fact, we submitted on Friday and had a technical question on Saturday that FEMA had that we answered. So we do expect that it will be approved. I don't know how long that will take. I don't know if Susan has any information on that, but even after that's approved, depending on the guidance that we get from FEMA, we may need more guidance from the Department of Labor, or we may have to basically create a separate system. A lot of that is still yet to be determined. We have already begun doing a lot of the legwork based on what could be required of that new system. Susan, do you want to speak to that?
They did not indicate how long it would take, but they did, as the Secretary mentioned, reach out to us for some technical changes. They did indicate on their website and in some frequently asked questions that were sent around to all the states that applications generally wouldn't be disapproved other than just having to make some corrections. So they did not give any timeline as to when they'll finally put the stamp of approval on it and we could move forward.
Next, Fox 43's Chelsea Corbler asks, could you explain more about why it is taking so much time to get the President's Lost Wage Act up and running? And why would it be easier if Congress extended the extra $600?
Well, remember that the Lost Wages Assistance Act, the memorandum the President signed was signed on August 8th. So we're looking at about 2 weeks since that was signed. We got the guidance shortly after that, and working with our colleagues at PEMA, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, we did get our application in within 2 weeks. And there was another question there. I'm sorry, what was it, Teresa?
Absolutely. 1 second, please. Let me scroll back up. Why would it be easier if Congress extended the extra $600?
Well, our system is already designed to respond to the extra $600, as we have been doing, over $15 billion until that program ended. So it would only take us literally a matter of days to get that all rebooted and ready to go. One of the, well, I'll let Susan add anything else that you'd like to add to that.
Sure, and a lot of it is, due to the separate funding source that we need to use. The funding for this can't be intermixed with the UC Trust Fund. It cannot come from the same source. It can't even reside there temporarily just to make payments. It has to come from a completely different source. And also the parameters about paying it are different. For example, we mentioned the $100 minimum that's needed in order to make a payment to someone. When the federal government submitted their first set of guidance out to the states, it was clear that an individual needs a weekly benefit amount of $100 and higher. Then they came out with a second set of guidance that said we can make up that $100 if someone has dependence allowance added. So in Pennsylvania, that means it could be $92 plus $8 dependence allowance. So as we go on, we learn more about it. We might start designing it or talking about it in one way, and then might have to change direction and go another way. So we're using the guidance that they have provided, the latest guidance, to talk with the IT folks and make sure that this gets designed in the best way possible. That's easiest for claimants to understand. We do have to go back, especially now since it's a retroactive program. It goes back to August 1st, even though it wasn't signed till August 8th, and now we're 2 weeks later. One of the requirements is we have to ask everyone who wants this benefit if they are unemployed due to COVID. If they are not unemployed due to COVID, then we have to issue them a denial. So there is a lot of background work that goes into this. If there's a denial and we accidentally paid them and we have to deny them later, there's overpayments attached. So it's not as easy as just making payments. It has to be an entire payment system that also includes denials and overpayments on the back end. It's pretty much its own mini type of unemployment system without being a full unemployment system. And of course, it's not even an unemployment program, it's a disaster program. So it is complicated. There are some states out in Western United States who had started paying, but they started paying before the additional guidance was issued, which is always a little bit dangerous because then you're going to have to make changes to what you've already done. So, we're trying to be cautious, make sure we set it up right the first time. And once we hear back from FEMA, we'll be able to know for sure that we have this and we're moving forward and be able to get the benefits out to individuals.
Joe Napsha from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review asks, how long is the process to get approval from the federal government for the $300 weekly unemployment compensation?
As we said a few minutes ago, we've been told that it should be a quick process. We expect most states, all states will be approved, as far as I know, that will be applying. We did have the one technical question that was asked on the day after the application went in and was answered that day. So we expect to hear something relatively soon. I wouldn't want to give a date certain because that's not our decision to make.
Mark Sims from Radio PA asked that there was some interference and he couldn't understand what you said about the trust fund balance. Could you please repeat that information?
I can. Let me just get that.
And while you're looking at that information, Secretary, I'd like to remind everyone, it looks like we're entering our second round of questions. So if you have any follow-up questions for Susan or Secretary Oluxiac, please submit them at this time.
Thank you, Teresa. The balance as of Friday, August 21st, was excuse me, let me do that again. 543 million with an M, $524,178. $543,524,178. That's based on information we get from Treasury. And we have already submitted the paperwork for the loan, and we're ready to go when we need to borrow the dollars.
And Bill Kibler from the Altoona Mirror asks, can you say why Pennsylvania decided not to add the optional $100 for those who will get the $300 in lost wage funds?
As most states that we know have applied are not doing the additional $100. The only place we can get that $100 is from state dollars or from what we may have left in the CARES Act. And those CARES Act dollars have already been accounted several times over, as some people have joked, but we have accounted for the CARES dollars that we have, and we don't have the state funds to cover it. We can count, and Susan, you may have to help me with this, it gets a little technical. We can count the aggregate amount of dollars that we have spent from our trust fund. It's considered part of the match. So Susan, do you want to explain that any further?
That's correct. So when they're saying that the states can get the $300 from FEMA for individuals, and there needs to be a $100 match on the state's part, that they clarified is not on an individual basis, that's on an aggregate level, and they do look at that weekly. So they will look to see how much we've issued to individuals from state funds and compare it to the $300 and just make sure that at least 25% of it is from the state funds.
Okay, Susan, Secretary Oleksiak, it looks like that's all the questions we have for today. Do either of you have any additional thoughts or last minute things that you want to leave with our reporters?
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for getting the word out. There are a lot of changes going on, as you can tell, and we're looking forward to getting those additional dollars, whatever the source, into the hands of our fellow citizens.
Okay, and that's all the time we have for today. Please email our communications office with any additional questions at dlipress@pa.gov. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.